Hi, I'm Judge David Stevens. I'm a Superior Court judge in Mason County. 1985, the United States Navy felt the world would be safer if I was in Bremerton, Washington. So I got assigned to Bremerton, finished my enlistment, got discharged honorably, went to the University of Washington, got my undergraduate degree. Most important thing I did at the University of Washington is I met my wife, Pam, about 37 years ago. So then I didn't mean to say it. It's really unfair to have to go after Drew, Dan, and Travis, don't you think? Jeez. And those guys actually talked me in the first time I ran for judge. I mean, this is just the hits keep coming. So I went into federal law enforcement for a while. Then I went to the University of Washington School of Law, and then I became a deputy prosecutor. Majority of my career, I was a deputy prosecutor. I've been an international prosecutor in Kosovo. I was a justice advisor in Afghanistan. And then when I went to Mason County, the governor had appointed a judge. And she was liberal. She cared about equity and equality. And I kept asking myself, what's the difference between equity and equality? And they kept saying, well, it's the same thing. And I said, well, it's the same thing. Why don't you just say equality, like the Constitution says? So I ran against her. And you know what? She had been appointed by the governor. She lost 2 months later. 2 months later, I kid you not, she was appointed again. You know where she was appointed? Kitsap County. Kadeen Ferguson Brown is now your judge in Kitsap County, even though she had been overwhelmingly rejected by Mason County. Because it really doesn't matter about merit to these people. All it cares about is, do you have the right ideology? The governors have been appointing for decades the majority of Superior Court judges, the majority of Washington State Court of Appeal judges, the majority of state Supreme Court judges have been appointed. Now, you have to know your history. Oliver Wendell Holmes said the study of law is the study of history. And if you look at our Washington State Constitution, it specifically says the judges are elected. Now, why does it say that? We all know that there are certain states where they are appointed, where there are committees and things of that nature. The reason is the territorial governor had unilateral power to appoint judges. And they knew from that experience that if one person appoints the judges, that they're going to make political decisions, ideological decisions. So we wanted our judges to be elected. But what happened was, because we have one-party rule for so long in this state, that when there was a vacancy, the governor would appoint. And a tradition arose. So the governor would appoint you, and then before you finished, when you wanted to retire, before you finished, you would resign, and the governor would appoint again. There are seats that have been appointed 6 or 7 times by the governor. And since it's a one-party state, there's a certain ideology. And that's why we're getting the decisions we're getting now. Now, you hear about the terrible decision, Blake decision, where the state Supreme Court, even though for 40 years, it had been illegal to have drugs in Washington State, methamphetamine, fentanyl, things of that nature. It had been up to the state Supreme Court twice. And then all of a sudden they decided, because of ideology, read the Blake decision. They said it had a disproportionate impact upon racial minorities, things of that nature. So they gutted it and said it was unconstitutional. And now you go to Seattle and you see open drug use. It's now a misdemeanor that isn't even really prosecuted, because it takes a year, 2 years to get the results back. Statute of limitations is 2 years on those things. So they're not even really being prosecuted. Drug dealers are still being prosecuted, but drug possession. You know what? Many times as a deputy prosecutor, I would prosecute somebody for possession of methamphetamine or something of that nature, and I would meet them later, And they would say, that was the best thing you ever did, Mr. Stevens. All the other prosecutors gave me a deal. And then I had to do treatment, and I just blew it off. But you took me to trial, and you made sure I did that treatment. And I finally got off those drugs. People want to be held accountable. We all know raising children. We all know raising pets, for God's sake. That you have to hold them accountable. Because if you don't, they're just going to get away with whatever they want to do. So why am I running? Blake decision was one of them. GR 37. GR 37. That's a general rule. It specifically says, so all the years I was a prosecutor, if you told me, you know what, I don't trust cops. I don't trust law enforcement at all. I think they're all liars. I think they're framing people. Well, you wouldn't get on the jury. You're biased. You're a biased person. You don't get on the jury. So several years ago, the Washington State Supreme Court said, no, this is not fair to minorities. It's not fair to minorities. So if you believe in things like systemic racism, we all know what systemic racism is. It's when we study the system and we can't find racism. So we just say the whole system is racist because we don't like the outcome. That's what systemic racism is. So now if you have those and you're a minority, you cannot be kicked off the jury. But you know who can be kicked off the jury? If you tell them that you have strong religious views, but you can follow the law and decide the facts and reach a verdict, you can be kicked off the jury for your religious views, but not if you're biased because you're of their favorite group. The other thing they've done is PD caseloads. This is going to bankrupt counties. Bankrupt counties. What they said is they don't think that public defenders are winning enough cases, that too many people are going to prison for the crimes that they commit. So they set caseload limits. Now, originally it was around 147 felonies. That's a lot of felonies to handle. I've done it. You can do it. But now they weren't even winning enough. So last year they decided it would go down to 47. So we're budgeted for 3 public defenders in my county. In order to comply, we're going to have to go up to probably 7 or 8 just to comply. That's going to require more support staff. Each is going to have a computer. They're going to have to get benefits. It's going to be millions of dollars. And when Deborah Stevens, who's Chief Justice right now, was asked about that, she said, that's not our problem. And it's purely ideological why they're doing this. They don't want cases prosecuted. Now there's a rule out there where they're trying to eliminate the bail system. You know, I get flack. Sometimes because of the way the bail rules are, I have to set bail for people. They get out, and then there's angry letters or things on Facebook, stuff like that, because they don't understand that the way the rules are written. But our state constitution specifically says if you commit a Class A felony, let's say murder, let's say rape, something like that, you can be held without bail. They're going to eliminate it. They're taking it out of the rules. They're going to put a cap on misdemeanors. You know, I find it really interesting because they've exempted some of those misdemeanors, and several of them make sense. Assault for domestic violence. Okay, yeah, you don't want a $200 cap on that. But they also included things like if you don't have your weapon, your firearm in your car, because we all know as good firearm owners who have permits that if you have a weapon and it's in your car, if it's on your person, you got it in your holster, it can be loaded. But if it's in your glove box, the law is you can't have it loaded. They've exempted that too. They think those people are just as dangerous as people who are out there beating up their wives. That's the way they see the world. And they're going to impose those views on you. And they can do it through the rule system. Because who's going to tell them no? They're the state Supreme Court. They get to decide whether they're right or wrong. So that's why I'm running for Washington State Supreme Court. It's gone on too long. We need people. The last time we had anyone who was close to a conservative was 2011. Richard Sanders. He was more a libertarian. So I had some disagreements with Justice Sanders, even though he's a friend of mine. We haven't had a real conservative on the Washington State Supreme Court in decades. And you see the effects of that in your neighborhoods, in our cities, in our schools. And it needs to stop. And the only way it's going to stop is if we elect conservatives to the Washington State Supreme Court. And that's why I'm asking for your vote, and I'm asking for your support. We've got our website on there. Please go and take a look at it, look at my biography, look at what I believe, and if you agree, support my candidacy for the state Supreme Court. Thank you.